Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Trolls of the Two Tonne Bridges. My name is Greg Dykes, and I will be your Dungeon Master for this evening. Tonight, having had an episode of looking at what Zibby and Percival were doing with the delights of the criminal underworld and, of course, Starbucks coffees, we now turn our attention to the other half of the party, to what Raana and Silaqui were doing, and what they might possibly divine from talking to the Harbour Master, Zindar. If you would like to learn more about our podcast, you can find us all over the social medias at TOTTB Podcast. That's TOTTB Podcasts, where you can find out everything you need to know about us, our podcast, what we're releasing, and all the rest of it. But right now, I ask you to join us for a leisurely stroll down Port Nyanzaru Lane to find adventure.
The Log of Percival Silverlight. After our chase across Port Nyanzaru, pursuing a ne'er-do-well, we have decided to split our resources. Zibby and I went in search of a contact that Zibby may have in relation to the pirate problem we heard about. As it turns out, I was possibly too famous for my own good. I was drawing too much attention, so I decided to hunt for coffee. Raana and Silaqui, however, have gone in search of the Dragonborn Harbour Master, Zindar. Maybe he can help us locate these pirates. Adventure!
Silaqui and Raana, you make your way on through Port Nyanzaru round to Zindar. It takes a little while, but again, because of the, I believe I mentioned this last time, but torrential rain that has been happening throughout this day.
Is it raining? Really?
It was, yes. It was raining. There doesn't appear to be anything that particularly interacts with you. However, I'd like you both to roll a perception roll for me, please.
Okay. 1 second. 11 and 5, so 16.
16 as well for me.
2 16s, okie dokie. As you sort of make your way on round, you notice a few things. There are a couple of tabaxi that sort of scamper past you fairly quickly, look fairly in a hurry. One of them sort of glances towards you, but without any real intent, just kind of like taking in that you guys are there, and then wanders past.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
As you go on past the warehouse district, which on the map is sort of the central area of Port Nyanzaru, you can see there is a certain amount of activity around there, certainly more than in the rest of the city. There appears to be a fair bit of moving around. You can see a few dinosaurs sort of like hauling carts. The torrential rain is not impeding the business of the day. However, you notice nothing else. You continue on round, making your way to the Harbour Master's office, and as you get up to the more protected and sheltered docking area up next to the Harbour Master's office, you see a glint of gold through the rain, and you can see Zindar is actually striding down one of the is it gangway? Is it gangway? Wharfs. That's the word. Piers. That's the word. Piers.
Dwarfs. He's strolling on one of the dwarves.
He's strolling on one of the dwarves, yes. Wandering down to a ship and is sort of hailing their captain. You can either head on just up to the Harbour Master's office, or you could go down to actually see Zindar. Which are you going to do?
Raana, I can see Zindar over there. Look at the shininess of his skin. I could look at him all day. It's beautiful to watch. Should we go and speak to Zindar?
I think that's what you wanted to do, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Raana sort of just nods impatiently and then starts off in Zindar's direction, sort of watching him like he's focusing on him, like he's trying to sort of soak up the sight with his eyes.
As you approach, you see Zindar is absorbed in his work. After chatting with what you assume is the captain for some time, who comes down off of the boat and offers some sort of slate that clearly is some sort of shipping manifesto, you see Zindar takes out what appears to be looks like a monocle, because he affixes it to his eye and has a good long hard look at the boat. And for a second you're not entirely sure what he's looking for, but he seems to be sort of like running his eye across the boat with this monocle in. As you get closer, you hear him proclaim, "Looks to be in good shape. Excellent work, Captain. Back to it." He hands back the manifesto.
So before he takes the thing out of his eye, Silaqui, with her quiet stealthiness, stands right next to him. And she's basically looking in the same direction as him, trying to work out what he's actually looking at. But so he doesn't quite know that she's next to him yet.
Okay, right. Okay. Raana, are you just going to watch Silaqui doing this, or are you just going to do anything while she's trying to sneak up?
I think Rana's suffering a little bit from, like he's fangirling it a bit. I think at this stage, just because he's not entirely sure what Zindar is, except dangerous but awesome. So he's sort of hovering, like he wants to go up and talk, but he's also doesn't really know what he wants to say, and he's mostly forgotten their reason for coming here. It was mainly the fact that he gets to see the magic dinosaur.
Mm-hmm.
Brilliant. So he's just going to sort of hover. He's not really paying much attention to what Silaqui's doing. He's just sort of tracking all of his movements and just trying to basically puzzle out what Zindar is and how he fits into his world.
So Silaqui, I'd like you to make a stealth roll for me.
Okay.
It's going to be a straight one, because I can't tell if Rana's imposing disadvantage or advantage on you, to be honest.
7. So sorry, say that's 12.
Oh, okay. Oh, I thought 7 was the full total. Okay.
No.
So that's 12. So Zindar. So you move on up, and yes, you're pretty certain that Zindar doesn't notice you there. And as you have a quick look at what he's looking at, it just seems like he's just looking at the boat. The captain himself is just sort of like stood off to one side. He hasn't noticed you either. And he's just sort of like, he just looks like he's sort of standing there quite patiently waiting. And again, because it's raining, he's just got water just like pouring down off of his face. Looks a little impatient, but he's just sort of stood there waiting for Zindar to stop whatever he's doing. Once Zindar finishes up, as I say, he takes out the monocle, pops it away in a little box he has, sort of box pouch thing that he has on his chest. Nods to the captain and turns to head off of the pier, and spots Raana there. And after a sort of like quick glance, he looks, just nods at Raana. Raana, are you going to say anything to him?
Raana nods back, and I'm going to do a self-imposed roll.
A self-imposed roll, right? Okay.
It's just like how cool Raana comes across.
Raana just doesn't. He just kind of sort of nods a bit mutely and then shuffles back. So Zindar's got room to go past, but doesn't actually say anything. He's doing like the whole Puss in Boots thing where he's holding his hat and his eyes go big. He's kind of doing that sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, I gave myself a charisma check and I failed that quite a bit.
Extravagantly.
So yeah, like the charisma check, it was not sufficient, even slightly. So yeah, Raana doesn't really know what to say. So he just kind of steps back and just sort of nods.
Have they still not seen me standing next to them?
Nope.
Currently, no.
Okay.
So, Silaqui, it's up to you. Zindar sort of turns and sees Raana and starts heading off, but are you going to do anything in reaction to him turning and walking away, or?
Hello, Zindar.
No, not Jesus. Sorry, not Jesus. Damn it, be damned!
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to surprise you. Hello.
He turns, and you can see in the palm of his hand is a small ball of fire that he very clearly is about to throw at you. Before he sees
It's
you.
all right. I'm sorry if I put the EBGBs in you. I'm sorry. Maybe I should have made my presence more known.
God be damned! Where did you come from?
I just walked right up to you. I'm very good at being quiet, you know. Even though I talk a lot, when I'm not talking, I'm actually really good at being quiet.
Zindar is just breathing heavily at the minute, and is just like, and does the kind of like the thing that Yoda kind of does, where he just closes his fist around the fireball, pulling in whatever magic he was just about to fire there.
Are you all right, Zindar? Do you need to sit down?
No, it's quite all right. It's no, hold on. It begins with an S, doesn't it?
Silaqui.
Silaqui. That was it. What are you doing here, Silaqui? Do you need something?
I'm sorry if I interrupted you. I know when we had a bit of a chat at Wakanga's that you talked to us a little bit about things like the pirate problem. And we basically were just wondering how you're getting on with that, or if there's been any updates, or if there's anything that we can do to help, really. I was going to go up to the Harbour Master's office to have a look to see what work are currently about, because we need funds, basically, before we can go back out on our main job, if you like. But we were all quite touched when we heard about the problem with the pirates. Them taking... were they taking boats, or were they taking... were they looting?
The pirates, they loot. They take what does not belong to them, and they make a profit from it.
They're bastards, I tell you. I wondered if you could do with a hand, or if we could help in any way, or you know, we can hold our own, and I just wondered if we could be of use to you, really.
Do you have a ship?
That's the one thing we don't have at the moment. We can rent we might have some canoes very soon, but an actual ship, no.
Well, I have to say, without ships, unless you can work out where these pirates are, there's probably not much you can do for them right now. I am, it is true, offering a substantial reward. I believe it was 2,000 gold pieces for each pirate ship that is captured, plus a bonus for the capture of the pirate captain.
That's pretty impressive. It's not to be sniffed at.
To be a hard job. The pirates know what they're doing.
This is very true. We've had somebody mention. Bear with me one moment. I'm trying to use my brain notebook again.
That's fine. I can see the steam coming from your ears. It's quite okay.
Is it Captain Swift and Dark who's got the Pegasus for hire?
Captain Swift and Dark.
Such a porn name.
I believe.
Oh, sorry, it's the Brazen Pegasus.
It's the Brazen Pegasus. It's open for hiring. It's one of the few that is currently permanently in Port Nyanzaru just now.
But do you think that would be either a good enough ship to help, or do you think that wouldn't withstand anything really?
The Brazen Pegasus is not a naval ship. It's generally a merchant or passenger ship. But if you were serious in your attempt to take on the pirates, perhaps speaking to Captain Dark would be a good idea. Perhaps she would be... Hang on a second now, I have to just double check, because I think it's a she.
It is now.
It is now, yeah. Hold on. It is... Yeah, she's a woman. Yes.
Hey!
Now that we've established that, yes. Yeah, she would be she would be open to discussing some sort of arrangement, I imagine, if you wish to meet them in the open sea. If you want to learn more, how about we return to the Harbour Master's office and we can discuss what I know there.
Oh, certainly. We wanted to go up there anyway, so... and you remember Raana, don't you? Raana wanted to come and say hello again.
Zindar turns and sees Raana. And Raana, do you say something at this point?
He just mutely nods at him, going,
Looking like he needs a wee.
Raana nods and, forgetting to speak in the common tongue, says, "Yes, it is good to meet you again." He says in Cholton, but weirdly like formal Cholton, like the kind of like
Me
like
too.
when you're
Good.
young.
Maybe it is.
Like when you're young and you're told that if you speak to a doctor, you shouldn't use slang words or anything. In that sort of slightly stilted, he's thinking carefully about what he says, and he says that in Cholton.
Okay, Raana, roll me an insight check, please.
15.
15. Okay. So, when Zindar turns to look at you, you sort of look up into these eyes, and these eyes, they're quite striking because they are this sort of deep golden with this dark slash in them. And he's got this draconic face, which just doesn't have as much emotion as a human's face. So as you sort of look up into this face, you start talking in Cholton, and at first you're talking normally, but the longer those golden eyes stare at you, the more you just sort of you start to stumble and stutter, and this is really quite a strange feeling, I imagine, because I'm not sure if Raana has ever felt this before, but you are intimidated by Zindar because he just stands there staring at you and doesn't make a sign of whether or not he understands what you said or not. For you, Raana, this is unnerving because he just doesn't seem to comprehend, and you can't tell if he's bemused or slightly threatening.
Raana sort of nods and sort of dry washes his hands slightly and then just says, yes, okay. And turns slightly to one side and points over the edge of the wharf towards the ocean and says, "Silaqui, look, I think I see a squid." And then hurries over to the edge of the pier and just peers blankly into the water, not really paying any attention, but feeling quite annoyed.
For context, I rolled there specifically because of the way this was playing out. I rolled for Zindar an intimidation factor, and he got a 22. So
that is a high level of intimidation. Also, he's a 7 foot tall golden dragon who can fly with magic and immolate entire armies with fireballs. So I think the power disparity is quite significant.
I also assume when you said you see a squid and walked off, you were still speaking in Cholton.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. So as you sort of wander off, Zindar watches you, and then he leans towards you, Silaqui, and just says, "Is he okay?"
I think he's a little starstruck, to be honest, but don't tell him I told you.
Of who? Me?
Of you, yes. I think he was really quite blown away by your display and your skill in the throat. Yes, I think he's quite taken by you.
Ah, I remember now. Yes, I remember you all. Ah, fantastic. It feels like it was only a couple of days ago, or possibly several months.
Only yesterday.
But come now. And he steps forward, and Raana, you feel this quite heavy hand like on your shoulder, and you look round, and Zindar has come up to you and just says, "It's okay, lads. You and Silaqui can come with me, and we'll talk about pirates. Yes?" And he's looking at you, and this time you do get the whiff of he's trying to make sure. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Raana nods mutely, and he's worked out at this point that perhaps Cholton isn't the best language, but he's momentarily forgotten what language is the best language.
He's just momentarily forgotten what language is.
Yeah, because he gets and he just sort of nods and he just repeats pirates, yes, pirates, and then just lets himself be led away.
She's walking along. Pirates, yeah, man, pirates.
Zindar takes the pair of you to the harbour master's quarters and leads you in, and you get into this area, and it's not a very big office, to be honest. You've seen it from the outside. It has kind of the feel of a tuck shop kind of thing. You've got the clerks that are at the sort of open window side, willing to, kind of like an information kiosk is what I'm thinking here. Tuck shop's not quite the right thing. Anyway.
Hi, Right, can I have a 20p mix bag, please? Thank you very much.
And the Twix.
there is no sort of like office space for Zindar. So there is just a couple of desks, and there's a sort of slightly larger one for Zindar. And as he comes in, he leads you over, but you are still in the same room as the clerks, waiting to see if anybody actually will come up. Obviously, this sort of time of day with this rain, there isn't really anybody in particular coming up to the information desk. While you are there, the only people that do come up is there's once or twice there seems to be like a ship captain who's just come in, sort of comes to report that they've just arrived, or perhaps a messenger sort of delivering something for Zindar, which he takes and quickly reads, puts to one side as he internalises what the message is. He leads you over to the desk and explains to you that the problem has sort of been plaguing Port Nyanzaru for a few months now. At first seemed to be freelance pirates that were sort of uncoordinated, attacking small ships. Recently, however, they have become much more organised, and as he says, reports so far indicate that there may be up to 3 pirate ships poaching the trade routes into and out of Port Nyanzaru, which is not very good for trade, especially when they now seem to be getting better and better at identifying ships carrying cargo of particularly valuable items.
Have you been trying to mix it up at all? I saw, have you been trying to maybe put cargo on some naval ships, for example, rather than the obvious cargo or passenger ships?
Where possible, we have been. It's not been the easiest. The merchant princes don't work in harmony, shall we say. So they all have their own methods and their own ways of doing things. I mediate and officiate the whole business of goods coming into and out of Port Nyanzaru, but I have very little power to actually persuade the merchant princes to actually change up and use those tactics I think would work better, unless they themselves believe it is worth it. It's not always easy. As far as I know, they have been attempting to do this, but as I say, more recently, the attacks have increased in both their accuracy and in their frequency.
You said there's up to 3. Is there any particular times of day that any of those 3 attack? Like, is there patterns of when they tend to come more, or have you managed to record anything like that at all?
The only information we so far have is one survivor from an attack returned to Port Nyanzaru to tell us that the ship that attacked them had the name Sturge written on the side. That is all we have so far managed to... Spanish correct, yes. Sturge. S-T-I-R-G-E.
I think he may have told us that already.
Yeah, I think so.
I believe I have,
well,
yes.
I'm going to write it down again, so
Yes.
it's on a newer
This is a fact, I think. There's the outside chance it was a different ship, so I'm hoping it was the same one. I haven't just told you a second ship, but hey-ho.
What's the survivor's name of this attack? Could we talk to them, maybe?
He's a very generic person, very difficult to pick out in a crowd.
Do you mean generic in comparison to you? Or do you mean generic in comparison to somebody not so illuminous and amazing?
When you think about it, everyone's generic compared to me.
This guy.
Raana nods, like, firmly in response to that, like, this is true. But doesn't say anything else.
Zindar basically says that the person in question managed to deliver their information, but they then left Port Nyanzaru on a passenger ship, as they were not native to Port Nyanzaru.
Well, that's a shame. It might have been interesting to try and talk to them to see if they noticed any particular patterns or anything, to see if there's any particular times where it might be worth us going up more than others.
For patternings, what you're really looking for here is somebody like myself, who is actually keeping track of everything. The commoner in question was only responsible for their own ship, and they weren't even from here.
Okay.
If it, of course, comforts you at all.
So, I mean, is it possible for you to show us anything you have?
I have here a list of those ships that have been raided, of course. He brings out this little sort of ye olde binder that seems to have documentation in it. You can have a scan through. Give me an investigation roll if you're looking for a pattern of some kind.
Raana, do you want to give me advantage?
Raana.
Well, I'm not entirely sure if Raana can give advantage at this point. I don't know.
Not on that, no.
No.
Raana just threw an 18. He was amazing. I threw a natural 1.
Minus 1, though. for my investigation roll.
All of 17.
That is the finest. It's the finest investigation roll that Raana has ever thrown thus far.
Silaqui got. Silaqui's got a +1, so Silaqui got 2.
Yep. And Raana, you got what?
I got 17.
That's 17. Okey-dokes. Yeah, Silaqui, you take a look at this, and immediately as you start to read through it, you just get you just get a headache, to be perfectly honest, from looking at this. It's too much information to take on board.
I don't think I ate enough those nuts earlier, you know. I think I'm a little bit low blood sugar or something. I got a bit of headache.
Raana, as you look at it, unfortunately, as you read through this list, again, all you can really pick up on is the same thing that Zindar's told you now, is that there is definitely this indication that originally there was a sort of sporadic nature to what was being stolen. You piece together, you think you can agree with Zindar that it seems like perhaps there were a couple of pirates that came about, but then a couple months back, suddenly they get more and more successful at what they're doing. The ships that are being raided, there's no dud raids where they raid a ship that has barely anything on it. It starts to be all the ships that have something valuable on them are being attacked, which you recognise is concurrent with Zindar's assertion that these pirates have somehow organised and are somehow, perhaps, getting information, which Zindar says is something he's worried about, is that there is perhaps a spy somewhere within Port Nyanzaru feeding information to the pirates, that he has yet to work out where they are or who they could be.
And how is Raana reading this information?
Raana can read.
Oh, he can read?
No.
I wasn't sure if he could or not.
No, Raana can read. He's not quick at reading, but he can read. I think Raana...
So gets the gist of things.
Yeah, he's not intellectually clever, but he's instinctively insightful. So he's good at spotting patterns and things. But his formal intelligence is poor.
Which I'm taking into account with the kind of result you got there, is that, it was good, but realistically what you're doing is you're confirming what Zindar has already told you rather than learning anything new.
Yeah.
Raana just sort of shrugs and says, it is as Zindar says. He says there are attacks, but I cannot see a pattern based on this information.
Indeed. As I say, these attacks seem to be more than just the random attacks of pirates that are just taking advantage of anything that they can see. It's my belief that they are somewhere based here in Port Nyanzaru. Well, maybe not in the city itself, but in Chult, perhaps.
Do you get any suspicions of who may be leading them at all?
Again, if I had my suspicions, I would be making investigations into that person. So far, it isn't possible from here to work out where they might be going from or how they're operating, I'm afraid. It is possible, though perhaps unlikely, that they have formed some sort of alliance. That perhaps these 3 ships we are experiencing are working together, but such an alliance would be, honestly, fragile. Pirates always fall prey to greed in the end.
They're very fickle.
Raana sort of, I'm assuming there's a window or something that looks out across the bay or something.
Yeah, there's the sort of the shuttered windows are open to the streets.
Raana sort of, he gets up and he wanders over to the window and he looks out at the ships. And he sort of motions out the window and he says, if they are working together, he says, there cannot be so many places where 3 ships could come to rest at night or shelter from storms. If they are not here, he motions towards the bay. Do you know of any places along the coast where they could keep the ships?
Sadly, not that I am aware of. There are places I know spoken of by some of those who have set out to explore or scavenge around the coasts of Chult, and I am going to switch you over to the player's map of Chult so you know what Zindar is talking about here.
Barely remember the last time we saw this map.
Hasn't changed much.
A great deal since then.
So, another thing, Zindar, while
the map loads.
your book's loading, while your map book is loading, I have a strange question. I imagine you've seen all sorts of people around here and things. Have you seen people who they are in groups and they wear sort of black hooded cloaks? Do you know who they are or what their business is here?
People in black hooded cloaks.
Hooded cloaks, yes.
I would need something a little more conclusive to identify specific people.
You know the temple where people go who worship the god of money or riches and things? I forgot.
Wukeen.
Yes, that's the one. I spotted quite a few of these people around the outsides of there in their black cloaks. And to be honest with you, we were followed by one earlier. Somebody was watching us, and they again had this black hooded cloak with the cloak up. And when we saw them, they ran away, and we chased them, but we lost them. And I've been getting the feeling we're either being followed or being watched, and I don't know who these people are.
Zindar takes a look at you and sort of considers for a moment and says, "It is of course possible that you are being followed. Many say that there is hardly a second in Port Nyanzaru you are not being watched by cat's paws of one allegiance or another. It would be hard to pinpoint specific people. For instance, a description of somebody in a black cloak could literally apply to just about anyone in Port Nyanzaru right now, given the weather."
But the people who hang around together in the black cloaks, is there like a group? Is there a cult or a following or anything like that?
Not that I am aware of. You can roll an insight if you like. See if he's telling the truth.
I'm really rubbish at throwing it though. 6 and 5, so 11.
11. Okay, dokes. Yep. You believe that he is being honest. He seems to be confused at how he's supposed to identify a group of people standing together in black cloaks.
Raana catches his eye and then makes the gesture.
I mean, that's pretty insulting. Literally flipping the bird.
The delivery of that line killed me.
So the queen kind of catches Raana at the corner of her eye
and makes the gesture.
Just thinks, what's he doing?
Yeah,
No, okay, so here's the thing.
What?
So here's the thing. Silaqui.
It's alright. Yeah.
Silaqui, so hold on. I need to find your
I'm not sure Silaqui would even see the gesture, would she?
This is the
like,
thing. It's a gesture.
It's a very subtle one, but still Silaqui would probably be like, why is Raana brushing something off? You know, or what? So you're right. Wow, he's really nervous around Zindar, isn't he? It's right necessarily got the...
Yeah.
Is that...
Silaqui, if you want to have a reaction to what he's done, you're going to need to... Well, it's really against your passive perception. And Raana, as far as I can tell, you're doing this just out in the open, right?
Yes.
Raana, what's your bonus to your sleight of hand?
No one's ever asked me that before. +2.
It's +2, right.
I get that from coming from Croydon.
Silaqui.
Yes.
What is your bonus for insight?
+5. Boom.
+5. Okie dokes. Right.
Yes.
In which case, so Raana, you make the gesture. Silaqui, you notice that Raana is doing something that's odd. He seems to be, as I say, this gesture is a sort of like
wiggling,
it's a brushing. Yeah, well, no, it's not a wiggling. It's more of a kind of like it's a brushing, as if Rana's like brushing dust off of himself. But it's kind of unnecessary here because Rana's like wet from the rain, so he wouldn't have dust on himself. So you're not entirely sure what he's up to.
And the clothes the little amount of clothes he wears.
Oh yeah, he also appears to be sort of looking meaningfully at Zindar. So again, you pick up on the fact that Raana is doing something, but you're just not sure what he's doing.
I think Silaqui just accepts it. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. Bless him.
Rana, I'd like...
Percival could have just got you a coffee. You decided not to have him around.
Rana, I'd like a insight roll from you, because you're watching to see if there's any reaction from Zindar.
Dirty 20, I think. Hold on. Was it insight?
Insight, yes.
Oh no, I get +3, so 21.
Ah, okay. So, you watch Zindar carefully, seeing if there's any sort of recognition, and his eyes pass over you in much the same fashion as they've just been passing over you this whole time. It doesn't seem like he's picked up on the gesture at all.
Rana looks sort of disappointed, and then says, you said that some smugglers, some explorers have travelled the coasts and may know of where the ships may go to rest. Rana doesn't say rest. Rana gets confused and uses the word sleep, because that's the thing I think he would do, where the ships go to sleep. Do you know of any such people that we could speak to?
Well, you could speak to them, but I can also show you on this map what they've spoken to me about and what they've seen. So the places that could potentially be harbouring pirates around Port Nyanzaru, there is a little village, or sort of, it used to be a town, but was overrun. There is a Port Castigliar, or no, Castiglia? Castiglia? Castiglia. Castiglia. Castiglia.
Yeah, let's get with that.
Might potentially be a harbour for pirates. It's mostly abandoned. However, he has heard talk of perhaps the Flaming Fist that march from Port Bellerond, occasionally using it as a resupply location when they're marching down to the city of Mesro to sort of explore its ruins. On that point, he also points out that the city of Mesro, being a sort of half-sunken city, might be a location where pirates could potentially make some sort of hideout. However, the Flaming Fist are all over Mesro, so you would think that if there were pirates there, the Flaming Fist would have engaged them at some point. Not necessarily a given, but perhaps there would have been some sort of talk from the Flaming Fist of that being a thing. There is then Refuge Bay. Given the name, it was the site of a ancient Cholton city called Ishao, and similarly, that could potentially provide some safe harbour. If you think sort of Tortuga or the, sort of Assassin's Creed Black Flag kind of Nassau, that's the city I was thinking of, a Republic of Pirates kind of thing, that maybe something's been set up there, possibly. It's not that he's had any word that has happened, it's just it could be a potential site for something like that. On the western coast, he generally dismisses the idea that most of the western coast could be the location of a hideout, generally because most of the eastern side of Cholt is bordered by the Mistcliff Mountains and the Kobold Mountains in the south. There is, however, in the middle of those mountains, a bay called Jahaka Bay, being a sort of like lagoony kind of bay. Again, might potentially be a place where the pirates could be making some sort of shelter. However, as he says, he's not entirely certain about that, as he's heard reports that there is a red dragon that has made its home down in the south towards that area. So he's unsure, but it could be a potential hideaway. He doesn't think the land masses outside of Chalk would be much use. Lantan, for example, is incredibly mountainous towards the seas, and so therefore wouldn't provide very good landing for any sort of city or port that the pirates might want to use. There's the potential, there's a little spit of land called the Dawn Warrior, but it hasn't got very much on it, so he's not certain if that would be a great place to set up camp if he was a pirate. So in summary, he thinks the three bays that are most likely are either Jahaka Bay, Refuge Bay, or Kitcher's Inlet.
Okay, so Silaqui is going to store that in memory bank. Silaqui will thank him for all of that information.
But of course, as I say, there is a reward that is available for those interested in taking down the pirates, as I believe you and your fisherman's friends, was it?
Always, well, I don't know really. We're working on the name. The name's just a fill-in for now.
Well, if you're of a mind to take on the pirates, think about getting a ship, as I say. There is the Blaze and Pegasus, is worthy of being rented for those services. Captain Dark is a frequenter of many a bar. Believe the Giggling Squid is the one you personally frequent. Is that correct?
Yes, we have a room each there.
She's easy enough to spot. She's got this sort of what are they called? They've got the hats with 3 points on them. It's something
Captain type hat.
Yeah,
I can't remember what it's called.
Something or other. Oh yes, that. Oh no, you're not there, Zibby. It's anyway. It's one of those captain's hats.
No.
If you can bring proof. If you can either bring in the ship and the captain, preferably alive, but if you can bring proof that they have in fact perished, then the reward money would be yours.
Well, that does sound rather wonderful. Obviously, I need to speak to my little group. Actually, I think my group would probably quite like to speak to you a bit more about it, if you ever get any free time. If you wanted to come maybe to the Giggling Squid for a bit of supper one night, and we can all talk together. I do have something else to ask you. I mean, have you been around here that long? Have you heard about many gangs or things like that?
About gangs? I've been here most of my life, in fact. There are gangs in Port Nyanzaru as there are in any city. Is there any in particular you have an interest in?
Have you heard of a gang called the Poltergeists?
The Poltergeists?
Yes.
It's not a name I'm familiar with, though oddly it does ring a bell. Why?
It's a group I'm looking for. Let's say they owe me a debt.
Well, I've seen you use those fists. I would not very much like to be them right now.
So the Queen goes, oh no, and just not slaps him, but like taps him on the chest. Goes, I've seen you with your fire. I am nothing compared to you.
He gives quite a gracious bow.
Raana nods behind Silaquy's back as she says she's nothing compared to him, and Raana's just like,
yes, she is correct.
Yes.
You're magnificent, you're wonderful.
Like, no one realises this, but Raana is idly thinking in the back of his mind, like, if he turns into a dinosaur, does that make him, like, related?
Magic.
In some way? Like, because if he can turn into a dinosaur, doesn't that mean in some way he's a little bit like Zindar? Because Zindar's
your new role model.
Because Zindar's clearly a dinosaur, right? So
I mean, he's got the frills and everything.
Yeah, Raana's also now contemplating how, if he changes into a dinosaur, he can make himself a golden dinosaur instead of just a normal, boring, multicoloured, feathered dinosaurs.
I don't know how that works with wild shape, because it's not quite.
No, neither do I.
Because there's the distinction between. The thing is, I think I'd let you try. I think I'd try and establish some sort of role for trying. I think.
Yeah, I think so. Because if it's a purely cosmetic thing, but
isn't that thaumaturgy?
Well,
no, it's not. Well, it's not quite. Because the thing is, you have things like polymorph that do let you change into other people. And
that's not what wild shape is.
That's not. Yeah, wild shape is specifically for changing into animals. However, technically speaking, everyone is an animal. So it's a sticking point because it's not really how the spell's supposed to work. So yeah, I think it's a question of there'll be some sort of skill involved. I'm gonna have to think about what kind of skill that's going to be.
Raana's not going to do it now, but Raana is musing this.
Raana's special. He has his own thoughts.
The thing is, I think. No, I'm going to keep that to myself. Actually, yeah, I think I've got an idea of how this is going to go down if it goes wrong.
Just a side query. How the ship, the Brazen Pegasus, had we inquired, or do we know how much it costs to rent the ship? I can't recall.
You do not.
I think we've got to ask Swift and Dark and Swift, or whatever they're called.
Swift and Dark.
Swift and Dark.
Truly appalling name.
Yes.
It really is. I have no idea. I've no idea who named this person.
They are going to be Tabaxi.
Are they an albino? No, I think it should be albino. An albino tabaxi. No,
Swift and
an
dark.
albino
He's really
snail.
slow.
Yeah.
Anyway,
White Shadow.
Here's my nickname. They think they're funny.
Albino flail snail captain wearing a tricorn hat on the back of its shell.
Or
It's super tiny. There doesn't even need a tiny little hat on top of a giant shell.
or just an albino turtle
Yeah.
Oh, I have to be.
who talks
It's got
very
asthma.
slowly and just says,
Well, I'm Swift.
I don't know why. In my head, it was just Treebird going. Everything takes a long time to say in old
Have you met the wife?
I've lost the thread of what we were saying now. So pirates, we've pointed out where they're likely to be making berths.
Yes. Silaqui asked him about the podcast. But if
Oh, I thought you said podcast for a second there. I was like, that's metagaming to another level.
Poltergeists. Have you heard of a podcast?
Every Tuesday.
There's one I've been listening to in my brain palace.
It's when you roll the perception so high, but there's nothing to see. It's like you momentarily get the sense that a lot of people are listening to you right now. It's completely wrong
It's
because
like
nobody's
I've got
listening to you, but still.
an inner monologue. But my inner monologue is made up of other people, and they're just all having an adventure, and it's all in my head while I'm meditating. It's very interesting. I call it podcast.
Anyway, anything else you guys want to deal with while you're here?
Silaqui says to Zindar, if you do end up remembering why you've heard of the poltergeists, or if you hear any word on them from anyone else, please can I ask you, as much as we keep it on the down low, to let me know. It is really important. And I swear to you, if you knew more of the reasons, you would totally understand why. It's for good.
As much as the Dragonborn can, Zindar raises an eyebrow at you. I don't even think they have eyebrows, but they do. He does that sort of like slightly cocking the head look and just says, "But of course, my dear, if I do learn more, I shall be sure to inform you."
Well, thank you. I have the utmost respect for you, and I appreciate that.
At this, Zindar sort of takes a breath and sort of says, "Well, I need to be getting back to my work. I need to make sure that I've got everything in order."
Of course, don't let me hold you up. I promise next time I see you, I will announce myself before I get too close.
That would be appreciated. You're lucky I was able to pull that one back.
I was there quite a while, before you even noticed me.
I'm sure you were.
Just rub it in.
Okay. Anything else you guys want to do while you're at the Harbour Master's office?
I think you needed to check the jobs.
Oh, yes. Jobs.
"Oh yes,
Jobs.
Okie dokie. You see on the board there are, a little bit disappointingly, you see that there are mostly the same jobs that were there the last time. So there is the job posted from Ekene about collecting a debt from Taban. There is also the Lord's Alliance plea for information about, you know that it's about Uralunga and Nangalore, but they've just sort of said that they want more information about Chort as a whole. There is a sign that clearly has been put up a bit more recently. That is the Hunt Pirates that you have just heard from Zindar. Basically details that anyone that brings in the captains or the boats of the pirates will receive the 2,000 gold for a pirate ship or 500 gold for the capture of a pirate captain. Omala's one has gone, and in its place you see a new sign as well that asks for help in clearing a mine that has recently gone dark. Apparently there is a mine outside of Port Nyanzaru that has gone silent, and the assumption is that goblins have raided it, which will happen occasionally.
That's possible.
That's something that, just for free, outside of actual roleplay, Raana is able to confirm that that's probably, that is fairly likely, as it doesn't state where the mine is necessarily, but it asks.
Just outside Port Nyanzaru.
They walk out the gate and there's a sign saying "Mine."
Yep. Well, it's
Actually,
it's across the bay from Port Nyanzaru.
Right.
There's a couple of seagulls. There's just a couple of seagulls that sit there just going mine, mine,
Seagulls.
mine, 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 mine.
So who is it that we need to speak to about that one?
For that one in particular, you need to speak to a patron at the Painted Rose.
That's the one we went to first when we was meant to be at a party and we didn't know, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Painted
that's the
Rose.
one. That's where you met
Yep.
Volo.
Volo, oh god, yep.
It was very lovely.
Percival's not there. Yep.
I know. They're in spirit.
The contact in question is apparently in room 15, and you will be able to get in contact with them there if you wanted to learn more about what needs to be done.
Does it say what the payment or anything is?
Payment is listed as 200 gold pieces, with possible bonuses depending on the severity of the situation at the mine.
Okay. And is there any others on there, or is that the other one? Last one?
That is it. Beyond that, you can see personal ads from like mercenaries and guides alike. No, not those kind of personal ads. This is a public information kiosk. It's nothing sleazy.
I'm looking for an orc who
Good sense of humour.
who really knows how to show a man a good time. Yeah.
She's already left.
Yeah, true.
Yes.